Hello and welcome to the April Ross Show. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Call Mom and them, Dad and them, your sisters, brothers, cousins. You don't want to miss this show on tonight. A lot of you have been tweeting me, Facebooking me about our guest on tonight. And yes, it is a true story. It's her story, and she's here to tell it. Yolanda Stephens is here to tell us about her memoir, The Upside of the Downlow. And also we're going to catch up with her and see what's been going on with her a little bit during her life after the Upside of the Downlow. Also, we had a great weekend over the weekend, I tell you the truth. One of our daughters got married over the weekend, and that is Cornelia Carter. That's right, Cornelia Carter is her name now. No longer a Ross. Oh my gosh, she's a married woman. 22 years old. She got married in Noonan, Georgia, and we are so happy for her. Our new son-in-law, his name is Brady Carter, of course. Nice ceremony, nice extended family, and I tell you, they are a great couple. You'll see some shots of her and her dad, Corey. Of course, he is just a proud father. Yes, he was, to walk his daughter down the aisle. This is the second time Corey's done this because he had his oldest daughter, Janae. You'll see her along with her husband somewhere in there. I think she had on purple. She was her matron of honor. Of course, yes, we shed some tears and everything. Just had a great family time, a great ceremony, and I'm just so proud of those girls. And their mother has done an outstanding job with them, along with Corey, raising them. And we're just happy for them. And I said, when you go to weddings, you just get all emotional and just start thinking about your wedding and everything and how happy, the time is. And when we had her bridal shower, we was just giving her hopefully some great advice. Just the main thing everybody said is just to keep God first in your marriage, and whatever goes on in your house stays in your house. Because mama can't fix it, daddy can't fix it, only you can. So I hope she take heed to all that great advice that we gave her. And let's see, what else did we do over the weekend? Went to a red carpet event in Atlanta. I want to thank Dominique from the Sisterhood. She contacted me, asked me to come to a red carpet event in Atlanta, actually on the OWN network where Iyanla Vanzant does her show, which is Fix My Life. Sasha the Diva was on there, and actually they had a viewing party for her, and I was fortunate enough to be able to attend that viewing of her and her husband hashing it out on the Iyanla Vanzant show. You're talking about interesting? Woo! Very interesting. But to say the least, if you did get a chance to watch the show of Fix My Life, they are working on everything. And she said her son and her husband have a great relationship, because it was all about her son not having a relationship with her husband. And as you know, with a blended family, that happens sometimes. But praise God, it didn't happen to us. We have a great blended family. Yes, we do. But anyway, coming up, we got Yolanda Stephens on the way, and she brought us some books. So guess what? If you want a free copy of the book, she's giving them away. And all you have to do is email me or Facebook me at April Hand Ross, or you may email me at theaprilrossshow.com, the April Ross Show at yahoo.com. Just Facebook me or email me there, and I'll give you a copy of that book. We only have 6. We only have 6. So if you want a copy, then just let me know. But anyway, we're going to go to our commercial, our China Moon. Eat there every Wednesday. We love it over there with Jan and the gang. Good food and great conversation every Wednesday. You can find me there at around 12-ish. We normally go 12 to 2, something like that. But anyway, check out China Moon. Located in
China
Lynette?
Moon, the best Chinese food in town. They're located at 105 Valley Plaza in Lynette, Alabama. They have the largest all-you-can-eat buffet. They're open 7 days a week. Call them at 334-642-3368. That's China Moon, the best Chinese food in town.
The Upside of the Downlow. That is the name of her book. And Yolanda Stephens is here to talk about that book. And I tell you, we are excited to have her in the West Point area. She's no stranger. She's been here before, and we certainly do appreciate her taking the time out to come up here and visit with us again. Hi, Yolanda. How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Thank you so much for coming. And I tell you, people haven't heard your story. Some people haven't. They've been surprised and asking me, is this true? Could a woman actually survive this story? But first, let's go back and tell us about the relationship. You were married to a pastor.
Yes, I was married to a pastor. We were married for about 3.5, close to 4 years, and we had a wonderful relationship. I heard you in here earlier talking about weddings, and
Yes.
it made me think back on my wedding and when we shared our blissful day together. So it was a ride, I tell you, but it was all what God wanted it to be, and the ending and the beginning and the middle, everything was what God wanted it to be. So I was excited about it and glad that God put me in the place where I could share my story.
So when you met your husband, let's just go back to when you all met. And how was the relationship when you all met?
When we met, we actually met in my mom's kitchen. He stayed across the street from my mom, and we both had moved back to the city. And when we moved back, we didn't know each other. We knew of the same people, but we didn't know each other. So it was just nice getting to know him, but I considered him a man of God, and I wasn't ready to settle down. I had a daughter already, and I just really wanted to just enjoy being back home and getting back on my feet from moving from out of town. But we had great conversation and got to know each other very well, so I thought, and we just went from there.
So when did you notice the little things that started to happen in your relationship?
I noticed inconsistencies. I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I noticed inconsistencies, and he wasn't the same person that I met or that I married. So I started noticing that about 2.5, 3 years into the relationship, and it quickly went from there, went downhill from there.
So in the book, there is a gentleman that this is surrounded about. The book is, and actually, what you find, you all took the young man in your home also, and he went on conferences with you all.
Right. And what was interesting to me, and probably what hurt the most, is the fact of betrayal. You feel that you know someone, and when you accept people into your home and get to know them and open up your home to them, especially sit down and break bread. No, for us, that's real sacred. You come into someone's home and you eat their food, and that's part of giving of yourself. And I feel that I gave of myself to not only the relationship, but everyone who came into our home. And he was one of the young men that came into the home, and was really around my family. So it really hurt to find out the things that were going on there.
What hurt you the most about the betrayal? Because he cheated on you, or was it because it was with a man?
What hurt the most?
Yeah.
It was the fact that I was I felt in the middle.
Okay.
It wasn't about the cheating. It wasn't about the man. It was about the fact that I felt like I was in the middle. I felt like I was living a lie. I felt like that we were portraying this happily married couple that wasn't. And giving a false representation of what really a marriage was, because we weren't living it. And that was the most difficult part.
So in the book, this young man, your husband, you came home, and in the underwear part, you didn't have an inkling that something had been going on. If my husband, I came home, two men in the house, and want somebody in their underwear, something is just not right. Because men just don't do that. Women, we might, hey girl, I'm just, got something on. But men just, around your home, you didn't have an inkling that it was something going on?
Well, at that time is when things really started started to falter.
Okay.
So that's when things really started showing. I started opening up my eyes more to what was going on around. And with that, the explanation was we had a pool. And so he was in the pool, and when he got out of the pool, he went to take a shower, and I had came in.
So you really believe that at the time?
No, at the
You
time
didn't?
I didn't.
Mhm.
But I was so invested in the marriage and in our children. By that time we had one child together, and I was so invested in that, and just really not wanting to break those vows. And it was difficult for me because this wasn't just a relationship. This wasn't a boyfriend. This wasn't a fly by night. This is my husband.
Mhm.
And for me to make accusations and accusals, I needed more.
You
Like
mean-
like most women,
Right, like most women, yeah.
You want to know
that
more.
concrete
You want
evidence.
that concrete,
Mhm.
and that's what I needed. That's
Mhm.
what I needed.
So when the young man, he did eventually tell you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was that experience for him to tell you, but not your husband?
It was out of body.
Really?
I'm sitting right here, but I'm really standing over there, and I hear and I see everything going on. And
Because was he in love with your husband?
yes, he was.
Okay, and he was much younger.
Yes, he
Am
was.
I right?
Yes, he was.
Okay, tell us about when he called, when he talked to you about being in love with your husband.
Well, actually, it was face to face because he was always at the home,
Okay.
and so it was nothing for him to come over or stop by. And so when he did make the phone call and say that he wanted to talk to me about something, it was just the strangeness in his voice. I knew at that moment.
You knew?
I knew at that moment.
When he came over, you expected him to say it?
I expected something.
Mhm.
You know, I knew something.
Mhm.
Because I've been asking, I've been praying, and I've been real faithful. And because of that, and I believe because of my faithfulness, I was really, really, it was time.
Okay.
It was time.
It was time.
If something was going to make or something was going to break. And all I did was just sit back and wait for it to come to me. I didn't go through phones. I didn't go through
So you
emails.
didn't go looking for it?
I did not go looking for it. I did not go looking for it. It came to me.
So did you ever ask your husband, what is up with you and this guy?
I did.
mean, he's coming over a lot. Are you really helping him?
Mm-hmm.
What did he say?
I did, and it was, he was a pastor, and really, really helping, had a real heart for youth, and he did. I don't want to make it seem like he was just a horrible, just knock down, drag out bad person. This was just a situation he was in, and it just turned out horribly, horribly wrong, and the ending to his life was horribly wrong. And not just to throw everything. And I know the situation was bad. The situation was bad for me. It was bad for him. But I had to learn forgiveness to be able to move on and to get past that point of the knocking on the door, the sounds, or moving out of the home, or every time a certain song on the radio comes on, or I'd break down, or every time I'd see a billboard that talked about a gun show back in my hometown, sitting in the McDonald's parking lot. I vividly remember it was just a horrible time for me, but it was something that had to be done. It was make or break.
Make or break. Now let's go back to when he came over, the young man, and when he came over to your home. What did he say exactly? How did the conversation go?
He said he wanted to confess and tell me something. And that's when he told me that him and my husband, that he was in love with him.
That he was in love with your husband. What did you say?
I did not say anything.
Anything? Okay, you just listened.
I needed to take all of it in.
Okay.
I didn't want to interrupt. I wanted whatever was going to come at me. I was in that moment of, now's the time. This is it, Lord. This is what I've been praying for. This is what I've been asking for. I've been asking for answers.
Answers.
And I'm not going to interrupt right now.
Right.
Because you're giving them to me.
Was he crying?
Yes. He was crying. He was very, very remorseful, yet.
Yes, he wanted your man.
Yeah.
Your husband.
Yeah.
So what did you think at that moment? How did you feel?
I was
livid. This is a man.
I was livid.
That's my husband.
I was livid.
At that time, were you all still having relations with one another?
No, we're not.
No, you were not. Had it stopped?
It did.
Had it stopped when you thought something was happening, or
Yes,
what?
it had stopped by that time. It had stopped by that time. But what my feelings at that time was not only betrayal and hurt, and I was livid, but I was also grateful
You were
because I'm like,
grateful.
this is it. I'm done.
So you knew immediately you were going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, well, you talked about forgiveness, so there wasn't at that point, had it not turned out the way it was, how it turned out, that you could forgive him and you all move forward? Or
But if it was a woman, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess we'll never tell because I think about that sometime, and maybe it would have been a bit different because a woman, you can compete with that, or at least feel like there's something that you can have there that you can salvage that marriage. But it was something in that just tore at me, and it was time to go.
It was time to go. So after he left, then how did the conversation? How did you confront your husband?
Well, during that conversation, when the young man was there, my husband came home.
Oh my!
So he was there.
So what did he say? Did he, when he walked in, did he know?
He knew.
He knew that the conversation he was outed.
Yeah.
Did he try to deny it?
He never confirmed nor denied. Never.
Did not.
Never.
Wow. So then you have to. Then it's out.
It's out.
In Columbus, Georgia. Which is a big city to us, but kind of small though.
Right. It's a mid-sized city, but when you're involved with church and church crowds, and I mean the love is there, but on the other hand, you have that street committee. The phone was blowing up, and it was one of those situations where it felt like everybody knew but me.
Really? So was the young man going around telling everybody? Or?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but by that time, some things were it just wasn't right. I don't know another way to explain it. So there were inconsistencies with everything that he was doing, from the places that he was going to the people that he was talking to and the people that he had around him. It was some glaring inconsistencies there. And it showed.
Did you all tell the church?
No.
Your church?
No. I know he told the deacons, Baptists. So,
okay.
So you
And what did they do? Did he tell them that the situation, or was he accused of the situation?
I don't know the ins and outs of what the conversation was. I honestly don't, but I do know that he came forth and said that this young man had spoken with me, and that these allegations were out there, and that was it.
Wow.
That was basically it. And about maybe a month later is when he passed.
Okay. And tell us about that experience between him going through that and the ending of his life. How was it between you all? It was tense. And that's the nice word to say. Okay. But it was a very tense situation. Were you all still going to the church? Or? Yes, we were still going to church. Was he still preaching? He was still preaching. It was one of those where it was over, but it just couldn't end abruptly. Okay. He was my husband, and I was still in love with him. I don't want to say I wasn't. It was difficult to deal with, but I knew the marriage was over. I knew that I didn't want my children to grow up in that type of environment, and I knew I didn't want that for myself. So it just was hard to say, okay, this is it, breaking from the church, breaking from everything that we're doing. It was, to me, it was a gradual process. I believe in phases. Okay. So, okay. And for me, it was a phase process. Okay, we have this now, and then, getting everything together for the house, because we have to find somewhere to live and want to make sure that the kids are okay. And it was more to it than just me. It was more to it than just him. So it was important for me that I take all that into consideration when making my decision. So take us to the day that he ended his life, that you got the call, the text messages from him. Take us back to that day. And all of this is in the book. And yes. The book has been out, The Upside of the Downlow, it's been out for about a year and a half. Yeah, people are waiting on part 2. I know. My hand is slow in writing, but it's coming. But yeah, all of this is in The Upside of the Downlow, Fastest Wife's memoir, and I discussed
as you know, his sermons and sermon topics seemed like they were going hand in hand with what he was going through in life at that time. And it's a word, it seemed like for preachers maybe, but you think it's a word for you when it was seeming like a word for him when I went back and listened to some of his sermons. The final chapter was called God Writes the Final Chapter.
God writes the final chapter.
That was the final chapter of the book. And in that chapter, it talked about how the prophet deals with different things and deals with depression and deals with anxiety and has to have a word for himself. And at some point, that prophet wanted to end his own life, but God writes the final chapter, and it was supposed to take up to the next day and not ending your own life. Well, for him, and when I listened to that sermon, it was glaring to me that when I decided that it was time to write the book, that was going to be the final chapter of the book, because in that point he was the prophet, he was the pastor, he was well known throughout the community, well known throughout the state, and it was fitting.
Did you really think that he would end it like that? Did you really think that in his state of mind that he was at that point of wanting to end his life?
No, I didn't. I knew things were bad. I knew they were bad because I was there. I was living it. We were still living in the same house. But I didn't think that it would get to that point, which is now why I am an advocate for suicide and suicide awareness, because at the time I was going through my own hurt, denial, betrayal. I went through all of those stages, and it took me a minute to get through them, but I couldn't see past my own eyes. And when you are close to someone and when you're living in that same household, you might not notice those signs of depression, those signs that this person is about to end their own life. And there were so many things that stood out, and it happened so fast, so quickly from the time I found out to the time it happened. A month is nothing.
Wow.
It's nothing.
Right.
So from the time I found out, the time the young man sat on my couch to the time my husband passed was close to a month.
Wow.
So I'm trying to deal with finding out my husband cheated on me with somebody of the same sex, and then I have to turn around and bury him.
Bury him. And then deal with trying to raise 2 kids.
Yeah, being a single mother. My mom was a single mother, and she took great care of us. I knew that there was no doubt in my mind that I could do it. It's hard, but it's something that can be done. I mean, even today, I brought the kids with me, and thankfully they're being on their best behavior for you, April. So yeah.
So there is an upside of the download, and tell us what that upside is for you.
That upside for me is that knowing that I had the foundation set, knowing that it didn't break me, knowing that I'm still here for my kids, knowing that no matter what, God has a plan for me. He has a plan for what I went through. And to this day, I'm not bitter, I'm not upset, but I know that I can get through it, whatever it is. I can get through it. So when opposition on the job comes, when somebody comes and tries to gossip to me, it does not faze me, because I know there is more to life than just that.
So what's the next chapter for Yolanda?
God writes the final chapter. But the next chapter for me is I do a lot of speaking engagements at youth and women's events, but particularly on the self-esteem and suicide awareness, because it's something that people don't want to talk about.
Right.
And it was something that I couldn't lull over, because my husband did take his own life, and I had to be honest with my children. I had to be honest. At the time, my daughter was 7 years old.
Wow.
And she was hearing things at school. My nephew was 10. He was hearing things at school. It's not something that can be dusted up under the rug, because now you hear about 7-year-olds and 10-year-olds who are choosing to end their own life when they haven't yet begun to live life.
Absolutely.
And that to me is very tragic. So that's the next stop for me. I'm writing another book, The Upside to Life After. And it'll be about overcoming. So it'll be a bit different than The Upside of the Downlow. That chapter for me has closed.
Closed.
It's closed.
Mhm.
It's time to move on. At some point, you have to stop living in it, and it's time for me to move on. To talk about overcoming and what overcoming looked like for me, and also for other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because when I put out the book, a lot of people, oh, why you do that? Why you do that? It was questions, but I had more people calling and saying, you know what, this is brave. This is
Very.
exactly what we need.
Mhm.
We need to hear something like this and see something like this because as a community, we tend to sweep things up under the rug, and it
Yes.
doesn't matter if it's Hispanic, Black, White, Jewish. We sweep it up under the rug and don't want to talk about it when these things are happening. And just to put a face to it.
Mhm.
Put a face to it. Say it's real.
Now, how can we contact you, Yolanda?
You can contact me by going to upsidebook.com. I'm also an avid Facebooker. I think I'm going to start Instagramming too. I hear so much about that. I'm like, I don't even know.
I know.
But I do Facebook, Yolanda Stephens, and then I also Twitter, Yolanda Stephens.
Okay.
So that's how you contact.
So check her out. A lot of you have been trying to contact me about Yolanda. She's here, and make sure that you follow her on Facebook, Twitter. You can find her, Yolanda Stephens. If you can't find her there, just come on to my page. I'll get you connected to her. Also, we got books we're going to give away, so you can email me or Facebook me, and I'll give you a copy away. At this time, we're going to go to our commercial. And we do appreciate you coming by.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for coming
Thank you
to
for
West
the
Point
invite.
to be on my show. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. And we'll be back with more of the April Ross Show.
China Moon, the best Chinese food in town. They're located at 105 Valley Plaza in Lanett, Alabama. They have the largest all-you-can-eat buffet. They're open 7 days a week. Call them at 334-642-3368. That's China Moon, the best Chinese food in town.
And we're back. And I thank you all for tuning in on tonight. Don't forget, we have a Mother's Day tribute that we're working on, and I need your mom's face. That's right. You can email me your mother's picture at theaprilrossshow@yahoo.com. That's my beautiful mother. She is no longer with us. But if your mother is no longer with you, hey, send her picture on. This is Miss Ross. That's Corey's mother, and and she was a great mother-in-law to me. So make sure that you email us your pictures of your mother. We want to highlight and pay tribute to all the moms on Mother's Day. Also coming up on this coming Saturday, Daishan Washington. She will be having her red carpet event on Saturday in Atlanta, and it's called Let's Get It On. That's it. Yeah, let's get it on. Red carpet event in Atlanta. So if you want to catch her movie, please go to her Facebook page at Daishan Washington. You can find her there. We'll be covering it. The April Ross Show will be there to cover it. Also on next Monday, I'm going to have the cast of I Almost Let Go. I Almost Let Go. That cast will be here on next Monday. They have a play that's coming out, and I've invited them to come on and share with us. The playwright who wrote the play, he'll be here, and we'll be talking to the entire cast. So, got a lot going on. I do appreciate your support, your prayers, and just Facebook me. Continue to keep in touch with me as well as I with you. We're going to end the show on tonight, and I thank you all for watching. Make sure you keep watching the April Ross Show.